Hello, everybody. This is Sierra from the Local History and Genealogy Department at the Kent County Public Library. Today, I'm excited to have Heather Churchman here. She is going to be presenting Covington Uncovered, Uncover Your House's History with Resources at Your Fingertips. Thank you, Heather, for joining us tonight, and I'm going to let you take over for the presentation.
Thank you for having me. I'm so excited to be here and to show you guys a little bit of how I do what I do. I'm Heather, and I'm the creator of Covington Uncovered, which is an architecture and history focused account on Instagram. So I take pictures of houses around town, and then I research the history of the house or location and find stories to share on Instagram. Sometimes that's who built the house or a family that lived there. Sometimes the stories are crazy. I've written a lot about the Roebling Bridge history. There is a canal that used to run through over the Rhine that I've written about. Quite a few murder houses, which people enjoy more than I thought they would, because those stories can be a little bit gory. But you know, our region has very interesting history, and I try to cover all of it: the good, the bad, and the ugly. So Covington Uncovered is just my side gig. I actually work full time as a marketing copywriter. I do take on private research for clients, but I get so many questions in my inbox that I thought a presentation like this could help a broader audience. My hope is that you'll walk away from tonight with some concrete steps you can take to research your own house or a building you're interested in. I'd love for this to be informal, so feel free to chime in with questions or chat your questions as I go through some of the resources I use the most on Kenton Library's website. I do want to stop and give a shout out to Kenton Library and Sierra Earle, who you just met. I could not do what I do without the crazy amount of information and old photos that I access through the library. And I don't even have to go to the library in person. However, I would suggest that you do visit the second floor sometime where Sierra works, and they've got a lot of books and other materials on local history and genealogy. And some of the things are reference materials that you cannot access anywhere else. And of course, if you don't already have a library card, go get one tomorrow, or maybe you can get one online tonight. So are there any general questions before I begin? I'm going to show you my page, which I meant to do already, but then there's going to be more time at the end for questions. So make sure to save them as we are talking. Okay, so here is my page on Instagram, and you can see it is mostly pretty house pictures. And I picked out a couple of recent ones just to give you a flair for, you know, so I see a picture, I see this house, I take a photo, I find out what the address is, and then you can see I write a caption here about, you know, I found out somebody who lived here in 1926. So wrote a little story about him and his family, and I even found a picture of this couple who lived in the house in the 1920s after they came here from Germany, which is super cool. So not only can we see some of the house's history, but also a picture. And yeah, this is a restaurant you guys may know, Otto's, that's right in Mainstrasse. So this one, I have another post actually where I found out why it is called Otto's, which is named after the founder's father and grandfather, I believe. But, you know, this post, I found some old pictures. And so we get to kind of do a walk back through time, which is something else I like to do. So you can see what the building looked like, you know, really as old as I can find. Sometimes we actually do have pictures from the late 1800s, 1900s that give us a really cool glimpse. You know, this is another one where just more about the story. And, you know, this is another house that's in Mainstrasse where I found out, you know, was doing some Googling and found out who renovated the house. And then, you know, posting some old pictures of what it looked like before it was all gorgeous like it is today. So that's just a little bit of an overview of what I do. I started this account in January 2019. So it's hard to believe it's been over 3 years of being committed to Covington Uncovered. So thank you, all of you who follow me. And I couldn't do it without the library and the people who are interested in all this stuff. So, okay, so we're going to start This week, I'm gonna showcase the library resources by doing some live research on a house in Covington. I shared 4 houses on my Instagram this week and asked people to vote on which one I should do tonight. So actually the winner is 29 Levassor here. You guys might be able to see why people love it so much. Whoops. This is a stone house located in Levassor Park, which is just near Wallace Woods, technically in South Covington. And I have written about this house before and done a little bit of research before. So that's also one of the reasons why I wanted to do it, because I want to be able to show you guys some of the goodies. So this is, the Kenton Library has an A to Z resources page, which is where I like to start when I'm doing research. And I'm gonna click right to it here. And it organizes all this stuff from A to Z, but I'm just gonna show you a couple of things at a time here, starting with Faces and Places, which is the Northern Kentucky Photographic Archives. I don't normally start with Faces and Places when I'm researching, but I did find a critical piece of information about this house in Faces and Places, so I will show you that first. So, you know, normally this is just like any other search engine. I could come here and I type Roebling Bridge and you can find cool pictures. You could type your street name. You could type the name of a building or a person. You know, if the address was 5th Street, it would be a little difficult. But since the address that we are looking for is so unique, I'm just going to type in Levassor, which is the name of the street. And I was very excited to find this picture, which I do use tabs a lot. So I hope you guys can follow along. Again, just shout out questions if you have them. But so, you know, I'm starting my research. I don't really know much about the house at all, but I find this old picture where the house is here and its neighbor, and it says Levassor House and Dr. Thomas Bird House. So I'm writing down the name Dr. Thomas Bird because that's what they're referring to the house on the right. Down here, the poster of this photo actually, I think that might have been my research because I found some owners of this house. And then you can see another comment refers to Dr. Robert Lee Bird, who was this person's grandfather. So now I've got Robert Lee Bird, I've got Thomas Bird, and I can start, you know, I can add that to my list of information that I've got on this house. This database of photos, there's over 125,000 photos, I think Sierra last told me. So it is a crazy amount of photos. The library actually has their own Instagram called Kenton Library Archives, where they're sharing a bunch of these old photos. I like to share them on my account too, because that is so many photos that we could obviously never go through them, right? But they're really, really fun to look at. So if you've got some free time, go over there and do some looking around. Okay. Next, we're going to go to the Kentucky Post. So the library has access to a bunch of different newspapers. You've got to have a library card and PIN number to get into them, but I really like them a lot better than a site like newspapers.com. Sometimes people message me about that. I think it's hard to get anything there, especially without paying for it. So it's a lot easier to use these resources to me. Plus, it's all been digitized by our own librarians, people like Sierra, and it's more relevant to our area, you know, than something like newspaper.com or even Google. So I also want to talk about quote marks as I'm searching, and we're going to be searching. You can use these newspaper databases to search addresses and names. The Kentucky Post, let me make sure I have my right link here. So you've got your intro screen here. And the first thing I'm going to search for is just the address. And I'm going to type in 29 Levassor. And you see I'm using the quote marks, which means it's got to come up in this order. If I just typed 29 Levassor without any quotation marks, I could find anything with 29 or anything with Levassor, which would be less relevant. Although again, with such a unique street name, just searching Levassor could be worth it. So let's see what they have here. I hope you guys will bear with me because I have never done this on screen before. And, you know, we're going to have to wait for things to load and such. So please bear with me as I try to show you what I'm doing here. So the first thing I always do is sort over here by oldest, just so you can kind of see what is the oldest, you know, reference piece in this database that we might be able to find. So what the first thing I see is a lot of references to this JB Sanders guy. And you can kind of see in the preview, first of all, you can see where some of this searching can get tedious because we've got 167 results. So how can you not be doing this for 8 hours, right? So, you know, I'm just going to glean a couple things. I've got JB Sanders. I don't think I really even need to open any of these things. But I did like this one where in the preview, it says, I will take you out, which is like, what? So I want to see what that article says. Now, usually when I'm doing research, you know, just like anything else, I might have a notebook where I'm writing down things with a pencil, a pen actually, who uses pencils, or, you know, I have like a Google document open or a notepad, you know, something where you can just kind of keep track of the details that you find. So here is a fun piece where, so we see JB Sanders, the guy who lives at 29 Levassor, also seems like he might be a real estate agent. He's listing lots for sale. I'm not sure. Oh, okay. He says he will sell you a baby farm, but I don't believe that is a farm of babies. I think that means a tiny farm. But I did think that was hilarious. If I lived in this house, this would be a fun thing to, you know, copy and print and hang it somewhere. But yeah, so we've got lots of information about JB. And let's see here. Bear with me. I need to switch my slide. So yeah, I now, since I did this before, I'm going to take you all the way over here to page 8 because all those other pages was just a lot of real estate listings for JB Sanders and nothing really juicy. So here is a December 1928 article where it's a little bit hard to read, but I wanted to look at this one because you can see the name of another person associated with the address. So it says Mr. George McAtee, I think that's McAtee or McAfee, has returned to his home at 29 Levassor. And see how it says, it's again, let me see if I can make this bigger. The reason that I would only search the number and the name of the street rather than trying to fit street or avenue or place in there, because the addresses used to be written a little weird. You can see that it says Levassor-PL period. Sometimes they call it Levassor Avenue, sometimes it's street, sometimes it's place. So you can keep your search more generic if you omit that, that piece of your search. So I would write down that guy's name and come back and do some more research on him specifically without the address. Here again is another cool thing is this an advertisement for the house being for sale. This is when the library starts cutting me off because they know I'm opening a lot of articles. Oh, look at this, for sale or will trade for a small home. Maybe he was like, this place is too big for me because it is a very, very large home. But that is an interesting piece of information, even without a name. So yeah, oh, okay. Here is one of the last bits I was finding in the Kentucky Post. It's another advertisement for the house being for sale. JB Sanders Homestead. So again, that's our realtor guy who has had this house since that first mention where we found him on page 1. But now you see Nina Sanders, the owner of the property, is going to Denver, Colorado. And she has authorized this RG Kinman to sell the house. So what I would glean from this is that Nina is probably J.B. Sanders' daughter, perhaps, and maybe he died, and so now she owns the house, and then she's selling it. So that is something else, you know. So I'm jotting down Nina's name. This house is still trying to be auctioned off in the 1930s. It's cool to read the old real estate listings. We're going to get to those as well. And then here is actually another name associated with the address, A.J. Hovkamp. And, you know, this is kind of where I wanted to also point out that, so really this is kind of like a letter to the editor kind of section where people are complaining, basically. But it's really interesting to read, you know, the things that were going on back in 1934. Why is it that a few selfish city officials can keep things unpleasantly stirred up as they are doing in the car situation? So it's just interesting to know that, you know, even 100 years ago, the same things were going on, but maybe people had more of a chance to be published in the paper. But what I would get from this is I would say, okay, maybe I want to find out more about this AJ person because he's associated with the address. Let's see here. And then last page of the Kentucky Post. We've got another reference to AJ. Which is, again, brings up some things that I'm not really sure what they are. The circle, they're talking about this circle of Covington of the Child Conservation Corps. And funny, it also mentions somebody living at 425 Wallace Place, which was another one of the houses that I was considering researching for you guys tonight. So that's kind of interesting. And so this Mrs. Hovkamp, AJ's wife, this thing she's hosting is known as the Edward Markham Circle. So I'd be jotting those details down, like, what is that? What does that mean? And trying to find out what that is. And then this is the coolest thing. September 1935, one of these articles ends up having a picture of the home, which is really cool. That's my cat, Jerry. I am sorry. But so you can't see a whole lot of it, but I feel like there's this little fence area over here that might not even be on the house anymore. But it gives a little bit more information. 11 rooms, the 2-car garage, which is something else I'm not quite sure is still there, but that's really fun to me to find something from 1935 where there's actually a photo of the house. So I'm going to pause because I'm wrapping up the Kentucky Post portion of our search. Oh, wait, no, I'm not yet. I do want to point out, you know, I had from finding the photo in Faces and Places and finding the names of Robert Byrd and Thomas Byrd, you know, I've been waiting to see some Byrd family names. So finally, I did find one here. We've got Mary Byrd, and then we have Nancy Lee Byrd. And then funny enough, there's actually an article about a lost bird in the neighborhood, but not capital B bird. You guys, there are just so many funny things you can find in here. I hope you are as tickled as I am. Let's see. Yep, a parakeet, possibly someone's pet, has been found by a Covington city official in the neighborhood of 29 Levassor. So it may have been a bird belonging to the Byrd family. But before I leave the Kentucky Post, you know, I would be writing down Nancy Lee and Mary and kind of adding to my list of things I would research instead of 29 Levassor. I would come back up here and I would start researching those names next. So let me pause here and see if we have any questions before I start moving on. I feel like we may.
I can chime in with a question here from the chat. So someone asked, what was the best way to access those Kentucky Post newspapers?
Yes. So if you come to the library website, I'm going to just start at the homepage of the library website. Well, actually, that didn't. Here we go. And if you go to digital library here, and then under subjects, you see A to Z resources. And that is where you can kind of bookmark this page and anything I'm talking about. So we're going to go to K, and that's right here where the Kentucky Post is. So, and this is where when I click it, you see this little library card here. That means that it's going to ask you for your library card number and your PIN number, which you can easily set up online if you don't already have a PIN. But so this is where you will actually go into the database. So it's via the library website. Did that help?
Yes.
Okay. What do you think, Sierra? Are there any other?
Nope, that was the only question from the chat so far.
Okay. I now realize some of the questions I'm seeing are you putting the links in there. So thank you for doing that. Okay, now we're going to go to a similar database, which is the old Cincinnati Enquirer articles. And these are great because they actually go back older than the Kentucky Post articles. Some of these go back to 1841. So it's really, really neat to be able to search something that old. Okay, so I'm going to do the same thing that I was doing with the Kentucky Post articles. Pardon me while I clear out some of these tabs here. And I actually want to just start over here to make sure it's clear. So again, this is what it looks like when I click Cincinnati Enquirer from this list here, which is under C. And then it tells you there's actually another database with more recent articles. So you can go into both of these. I think there should be a little library card here, but because you do need to use a library card if you're accessing this at home from outside the library. Okay, so we're going to go in here and I'm going to do the same thing I did in the Kentucky Post, where I'm just going to start by searching the address in quotation marks. And okay. Oh, you know what? I think I'm in the newer database. Bear with me. There we go. Okay. Fewer results, which is good. Again, I like to come over here and sort by oldest, just so I can kind of get the lay of the land. And again, I like to sort of make some sense of things from these previews. But here, I'm really happy to see this Sanders name, because remember we had J.B. Sanders and we had Nina Sanders. And now we have... So I also want to point out with the Enquirer, they are a little bit trickier to search because the highlighting is not super, super bright like it is in the Kentucky Post. So my kind of sense of what this is, the husband of Laura Gray Sanders at his home, I'm like, okay, this is probably an obituary. Out of this whole page, I'm going to hone in right here because it's just really hard to see, but you can see this tiny highlighting. So my point is, sometimes with these articles, you have to spend a little bit more time looking for what you want to find on the page. However, now we know that J.B. Sanders is named John B. Sanders and that his wife is Laura Gray Sanders. So Nina, more of a chance that she is his daughter and was trying to sell his house after he passed away, which was here in 1928. So I would make note of these details. Again, instead of searching J.B. Sanders, now I can add John B. Sanders or John Sanders, and then also trying to look for Laura Gray Sanders, just as these early occupants of the home. And then maybe because of the years, you know, maybe those are the people that were the first occupants, since those are the earliest names that we found. So sometimes there's a lot of classified ads here. So I'm just gonna, you know, skip through some of these things and look for the good stuff. Okay, here again is an at her residence, which is likely an obituary. Sad but true, but that's where a lot of our information comes from. Please enjoy these vintage ads from 1971. Because what we're looking for is this tiny little area over here, but happily we're seeing some details about the bird family, which is what we're looking for. Bear with me. So I can see here Marguerite, and then it says Née Rand, N-E-E, that means maiden name. So that means that her birth name was Marguerite Rand. And again, so I could search Marguerite Rand, I could search Marguerite Bird. She was the wife of the late Dr. Robert L. Bird Jr. So now I know there's a junior, there's a Robert Lee Bird Sr. and Jr. It also gives the name of some of her relatives and the name of their address, 29 Levassor. So we know that she was living there until 1971. So the Birds had it for a pretty good chunk of time. So those are more details to kind of go onto our list and then go back and search. Let's see. Okay, so I think that was all I picked up out of the Cincinnati Enquirer on this house. Aside from a little jealousy, because there were a lot of estate sales in the 90s, and it would have been amazing to go to this house and get some of that old furniture from the old days, because I think there used to be a lot of those auctions in Covington. So I will pause now. I'm going to leave the Cincinnati Enquirer, so I'm going to pause now and see if we have any questions. I think we're good. Okay. Thank you, Danny. So, 29 Levassor, here are the names that we have found so far just from searching those two newspapers. So that's a list of 10 people. And then you can see how you can now go back to the Kentucky Post and the Cincinnati Enquirer and try searching these names. And then you can find, because sometimes it is worth remembering that all the information might not be listed with 29 Levassor, for example, or it might be under, it might just say the family lived on Levassor or the corner of Levassor in something. So you've got to remember that you can't count on the address being mentioned. And so there are always interesting things to find if you want to keep zooming in on those names. Okay, so now we're going to go to one of my favorite databases through the library, which is the Northern Kentucky Real Estate Listings. So I'm going to click into here. And so this is where I have found a lot of vintage pictures from these listings, which cover the 60s and 70s usually. But if a house was sold during that time, there is a good chance that you can find a real estate listing in here. It is a crapshoot, but it is always worth looking, and it's very exciting if you can find your house. And as we saw in our research, this house was for sale many times over the past 100 years. So we actually can find it here in this database. This one's a little tricky. And let me tell you how I found this one to just step backward for a minute. Let's see here. Bear with me. Back to this A to Z resources, which you can find under digital library and A to Z resources. Now we're going to go to G for Gen KY, which is the Northern Kentucky Genealogy database. So this is a lot of really local focused stuff, and you could really get lost looking for stuff in here. I mean, lost in a good way, because there's so many cool things. But this is alphabetized, and what we're looking at is the Northern Kentucky Real Estate Record database here. So homepage of the database, you've got to start by clicking C for Covington, or P for Park Hills, or L for Ludlow. you know, since a lot of these are technically part of Covington anyway, you might still find them under Covington. Just one of the little nuances you're going to find here. There are some things under Newport if you know, look there, in Bellevue. But so we are going to look under C for Covington, and it's going to load another search box over here. So next to search this table, again, because Levassor is unique, I'm going to just type that in. But if the address was 5th Street or West 5th or something like that, you would have to spend, you know, a little more time trying to find what you're looking for, because you can see East might be spelled out. It might be an E period. This one doesn't even have the TH at the end. So you've got to kind of think of being creative with your searches if you've got an address that's more generic like that. But Levassor, and so, okay, so it's gonna just automatically fill in your search results down here. We've got 2 pages. If you click this, it'll sort the addresses by number, so you can just have an easier time looking. But yeah, you can see, you might think, oh, it's not here, but it is here, 29 Levassor Place. So we have found several different things. Sometimes it's the same listing that was used multiple times. So I don't know if I'm going to open all of these, but you can see this says PDF here, but this is the document that we want to look at. So I'm just going to open a couple of these in a new tab. And then we get this awesome old real estate listing where you have all these details here again, where it says, pardon me, I'm in Covington in the city, and there's people on motorcycles going by. You can see owner occupant name. So that could actually be another name that you might want to research. I have not seen that name yet, actually. But it gives you details. Sometimes you can get a read on how old the house is from these. Let me make this a little bigger. 85 years. So, you know, you could subtract that from 1976. Sometimes it just says old, you know, on the age of the house. But yeah, you can get a sense of what the house looks like. It's got some wood burning fireplaces. You can see, you know, the old days of the public school, parochial school. There's a bus nearby. And then you can see an old picture, which is super cool. Old cars. And then it looks like there's just some more details. So a lot of times for my page, I'll just screenshot this and, you know, share it. And sometimes this might be one of the only photos that we can find of an old house, which is super cool. So some of these have more details than others. You know, this one looks exactly the same as the other one we were looking at. I found one that says, you know, like orange shag carpeting, red carpeting, if you can imagine. This one is a little bit different. Beautiful old mansion, some stained glass windows, parquet floors. That's a really nice picture. You can kind of see that arch that we saw in that old picture from the 1930s in the little garage back there. So that's a beautiful old picture to have. So yeah, this database, I would encourage all of you to come in here and try to search your street name and see if you can find some old listings for your house, because it's really, really exciting if you can. Let's see. Okay, yay, somebody just found their house. That makes me happy. You do not need a library card for Gen KY. All of these resources are open. No library card required. And so these real estate listings, and then the next thing I'm going to show you is also located within Gen KY. No library card needed. It is the National Historic Register nomination forms. Bear with me. So I often use this information to find old photos and sometimes information about the neighborhood. You know, it's a little bit difficult to understand what these are. like, what are the National Historic Register nomination forms? But, Covington, I think, has at least 16 historic districts. Newport, Bellevue, Cincinnati, they've all got these registered historic districts, which means sometime in, it was like usually the 70s or 80s when people were really interested in saving old houses and finding a way to get them protected from being torn down or changed a lot on the exterior. So in order to do that, you have to put together an application with information about the neighborhood, pictures. You're kind of proving to the historic register, which is part of the National Park Service, which is part of the federal government. So you kind of essentially have to prove to these people that it's worthy of being protected. And so it's talking about dates and architecture types and, why it's worth saving, why it's rare. And so the benefit to us, even if it's, kind of hard to explain what it is, the benefit to us is that we have literally hundreds of pages of information and old photos on our neighborhoods that we can see. So, the house we're looking for is in Levassor Park, which technically does not have its own historic register nomination form. However, I'm going to show you Wallace Woods because that's nearby. And we're going back to the same Gen KY page. And let's see here, National Historic Register nomination forms. So get excited because look at all of these different neighborhoods that are available to peruse. Riverside Drive, Seminary Square, Wallace Woods, Main Strasse, which is really fun to look through, Mutter Gott, which is the area around Mother of God Church, Lee Holman, that's the neighborhood that I'm located in on the west side. So yeah, there's all sorts of neighborhoods around town. And there's also, as you can see, some Ludlow, Fort Mitchell. There's so many things available. So we're going to go into Wallace Woods just so I can show you guys. And there's always two documents. There's one document that's full of information and one document that has photographs. And depending on who completed the nomination, sometimes there's a lot of information, sometimes it's a little bit more sparse, but regardless, it is super cool. But look at this. We are looking at a 56-page document, right? Which is kind of a lot. But I mean, this talks all about the Wallace Woods Historic District has 250 residences, and it talks all about the history of the development of the suburb. It talks about a lot of people that were involved. It's really interesting, especially if it's, your part of town. And sometimes when I'm researching a house, it will be mentioned here in the text, as a particular example of this type of architecture, or, this house is particularly important because of who lived there or who designed it. Now I'm going to the end of this one just because sometimes you'll get old maps in here. So somebody who applied for this, here's where they were proposing that the historic district, all these houses should be included. I love this old map, the Licking Farms of Wallace, Levassor, and Holmes. So this is the whole area. Here's Holmesdale, which is the old castle where Holmes High School is located now. The house we're researching is here on Levassor Avenue, part of which was called Eugene Street back in the day. That's the Levassor namesake. That's why the street is called that. Longwood is the original estate in Wallace Woods. But yeah, it's pretty cool to see all these there's stables, toll house, Burnett Battery. There's a lot of things on here that you might say to yourself, I want to know more about that. So that's one of the cool things that you can find in some of these. This is a really old map. Looks like it's one of those Sanborn fire insurance maps. Which unfortunately I didn't have time to show you guys tonight. But yeah, so there's lots of cool old pictures in this one. And so one document is all these informational things, and then the other document is actually old photos. And these are really well labeled. You can see they were taken in May of '83 by Joseph Gastrite. who the Gastrites are a prominent family in Wallace Woods, and they still actually own a lot of properties there. But he has written a book about the history of Wallace Woods, and so he is the expert. But I have spent more time than I would like to admit just looking through these photos and then thinking, what does that look like today? And let me go find a picture. So this is somewhere else where you might be able to come and find an old picture of your house, a cool old car. They're just super, super fun to look through. So, and again, we have all of these different ones available in our area. Plus, Newport also has a bunch of historic districts, Cincinnati. So once again, it's not all digitized, but what is available is plenty, and it's super fun. So I wrote, I guarantee you'll enjoy coming back to this page, because I do. No library card required. Okay. How are we on questions? That page is, it's under the GenKY database. So if you go under G to GenKY, and then it is under the National Historic Register on that alphabetical list. Oh, that is interesting about the historic registers. Well, and I should mention that just because we have historic districts doesn't mean there has to be another layer of protection, I believe, from the city called a historic overlay before it actually, because you guys know Main Strasse is a historic district, but then they were still able to, build new apartment complexes there. So it is a very, very complicated system that, I think a lot of people have fought over the years, but I'm just so grateful. The people that did all the work to put that information together not only has ensured that we have more of these houses remaining to look at on the streets, but also that we have all this historic information to look back on, and imagine how much research they were doing before. So, shout out to Debbie for doing the bulk of the scanning and indexing on those real estate records, which are, again, really a treat to look through. So, all this stuff is available because somebody has taken the time to scan it in and make sure you don't have to leave your house. So let's see. I think we're good on questions, but we have another minute. So I will show you the bonus surprise resource that I was going to put up here. Okay. I don't know if you guys have heard of this NKY Views website. I still need to email and find out who this amazing person is that created this website. There is a search feature here, but also you can just go into, the address is nkyviews.com. And this is just a free website that I found that, somebody locally has put together. But I find a lot of really old pictures on here. So if we go into Kenton County, for example, we've got all of these cool things just on Covington, aerial views, Booth Hospital, brewers and distilleries. Booth Hospital is now a condominium building, but this is on 2nd Street, down in Riverside. This is the old hospital that was there before the one that you know of now. But you can find lots of old pictures of different neighborhoods. Some of the favorite things I like to look at are the residential scenes, since we're talking about houses. And this just, again, I don't know if you guys are aware that there was a castle down on the riverfront that's no longer there. We had 2 castles in Covington. There was Holmes Castle, and then Amos Schinkel. He was one of the funders and builders of the Roebling Bridge. He had this castle on 2nd Street, which, I think after he died, his wife was like, can I go somewhere smaller, please? And, the mansion unfortunately faded away. They tore it down and erected the first Booth Hospital there in 1920. But yeah, so there's lots of old pictures of houses you may know. The Graziani House, which is on 2nd Street as well. And this whole tower is gone from that. So it's really fun to like this house now is kind of cut off right here. Another cool thing about old pictures is there were an unbelievable amount of fires back in the day. So a lot of very tall structures like church steeples are gone because of fires, and we don't know what they once looked like. The top of this house, I believe it was an apartment building, and somebody was smoking in bed, and the house was forever changed. But there's lots of old pictures here that you would probably enjoy looking through. Here's the spaceship house in Covington that we all may be familiar with. But yeah, this is a really fun resource too, to find old pictures and just kind of, there's a lot of like fire department pictures, lots of stuff on the Roebling Bridge, schools, churches. It's really amazing. Sierra, do you know who created that website?
I am not certain, but I am now going to find out.
Right? I know. It's been on my list for 3 years now to just send a message and be like, who are you? Who are you? This website is amazing. But yeah, so go ahead and bookmark that one too. And then, I just have some final tips for you guys. Get your library card. It's super easy. And then, you can access these old newspaper databases for free. Whereas, if you went somewhere online, you just wouldn't be able to find the same quality of information. Kenton Library Archives has a new Instagram where they're sharing some old photos from that Faces and Places database. Don't skip the Googling. Like, please remember about my quotation mark tips and then use that on Google. Like, I would also include as part of this search to go to Google and type in 29 Levassor and just, see what comes to the surface from that. Because I do find lots of good stuff just in Google searching as well. I have a note on about have fun. I think I mentioned the ad, but, whenever I'm looking something up, there is always something else like around it that sometimes I jot down like, ooh, I need to research that. But sometimes it's just a very, very funny piece of history. Especially ads for like old medicines are very funny. And, be patient and remember the big picture. We came up with 10 different names that you could go back and search all the different resources, and we've only covered really a small handful of them. So, it is definitely not a sprint. It is a marathon, but you're supposed to have fun and, just find interesting stuff about where you live, whether that's your neighborhood or your own house. So, but yeah, just remember the big picture and have your notebook and reach out to me with questions on Instagram. And I think Sierra is going to be sharing this recording, and then I'm going to also share it out. So I know some people wanted to be here but couldn't. So I'll make sure you guys have a chance to see this. I have been wanting to record something like this, so I just want to thank Sierra and the library again for asking me to do this. And it was great. I hope you guys learned a lot. And oh yeah, there's my email. Feel free to reach out to me with questions. And I hope you all learned something.